Hello, and welcome back to another Lenten meditation, this time for Monday, March the 8th. And our text for this particular meditation comes from the Gospel of Mark in the 9th chapter, beginning in verse 33. When Jesus and his disciples came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another who was the greatest. Jesus sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last, and servant of all." Then he took a little child and put it among them, and taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me." My first profession was sports broadcasting. I was bitten by that bug while in middle school, pursued it through high school, and then college, and then in my early adulthood. To me, the attraction was sports as narrative, played out in real time. All of the elements of a good narrative are there. Conflict, heroics, failures, ironies. There's a plot to pretty much every athletic event. Whether it's as slow as baseball or as frantic as hockey, a storyline emerges. When I began my theological studies, I developed questions about the compatibility between sports and the gospel. I realized that there is no greater heresy than to question the primacy of sports in our country. It does seem that competition, which is at the heart of sport, is an irreducible part of the human condition. We compete in everything, not just between the athletic lines, but also in the assembly lines and the checkout lines. We covet market share, profit, and besting the competition. We compete in business and in school, on the playgrounds and in the courtrooms. Even the church is competitive as we all hope to reach what few religious, unchurched people remain. But is sport, competition, compatible with the gospel? What would Jesus think of our hyper-competitive environment? Here I'm not talking about competing for time on Sunday morning, a time now meant more for Little League than for Sunday school. I'm talking about this essential aspect of human nature. Are we meant to be competitive? What is the consequence of competition in the Bible? In the beginning, Adam blamed Eve for the transgression. Cain slew Abel because he was jealous that Abel's offering was better. When David was dying, much bloodshed occurred as his sons vied for the throne. War is not sport, but I'm sure that the Babylonian army understood their conquest of Jerusalem as a victory in competition. Our reading for today eavesdrops on the disciples as they're arguing about which one of them is the greatest. This is in bad taste generally, but especially because the argument comes shortly after Jesus has once again told them that he is going to Jerusalem to die. Aware of this competition, Jesus calls his disciples together and shares that in the kingdom, things are turned around. The leader is the servant, the last is the first, the child is the one to be lifted up, and there is no greatest, for all are equal. That is not a good locker room speech. Jesus went to his cross humble and scorned, and he rose quietly. He returned in speech, not with sword. Subsequent centuries would look at his death and find there a victory. Victory over sin, victory over death. Jesus won the competition. But Jesus never competed. He preached, he healed, he taught, he loved, he cared, and he felt deeply. He knew he didn't need to compete because he was of God and in God, and God has no competition, only love and mercy and a desire for justice. We will never eradicate competition from the human experience, just as competition was not eradicated from the biblical witness. But we should remember that being better than is not a witness of the gospel. Winning is not the goal. The gospel should convey to us that we are already as good as we need to be, and we have already won, because Jesus saw to that in his death and resurrection.